A cop's job can sometimes entail the most unenviable of tasks. Nathan Bradley, a trooper from Georgia State Patrol, can certainly attest to that, as he responded to a fatal car crash in October 2015. However, after traveling to the victim's house, he decided to take their 4 children and drive away. Donald and Crystal Howard, residents of Morgan County, Georgia, were parents to a quartet of kids named Justin, Amia, Damien, and Travian. For close to a decade, Donald was a member of the United States Army, serving 2 tours, one in Afghanistan and another in Iraq. Following a knee injury, though, he was honorably discharged. As for Crystal, she acted as a teacher to her 4 children, homeschooling them alongside her husband. In October 2015, the young parents prepared themselves for what looked to be a busy Halloween night. With each of the kids dressing up in their respective costumes, the pair needed to run to the store to buy some additional face paint and candy. After grabbing what they needed, Donald, 33, and Crystal, 29, then made their way back to the house. Sadly, though, tragedy soon struck. While driving along a twisting road in their SUV, the pair ran off the roadway and hit a ditch. The car consequently went airborne before hitting a tree, killing them instantly. Not long after the accident, Nathan Bradley of the Georgia State Patrol overheard the details on his radio. A few moments later, he discovered that he was fairly close to the wreck, and he responded to the call. Following his arrival, Bradley and his team then conducted their investigations before seeking out Donald and Crystal's loved ones. After finding their address, Bradley traveled to the house along with a county deputy and a deputy coroner. However, the trio couldn't prepare themselves for what they found, as the 4 kids answered the door in their Halloween costumes. "We were lost with words," the trooper recalled on GoFundMe in November 2015. The deputy then asked the eldest boy if anybody was home, hoping for a yes, but the boy would unknowingly disappoint us, Bradley continued. Justin, the eldest boy, explained, "My parents went to the store to get more face paint. They told us not to open the door for anybody, but they should be back soon." Heartbroken by what they had heard, the trio then searched for the children's closest relative, keeping the crash to themselves. They eventually got in contact with the quartet's grandmother, Stephanie Oliver, but she lived several hours away in Sarasota, Florida. At that point, Bradley made a quite incredible decision. With Oliver on her way and Department of Family and Child Services aware of the situation, the trooper couldn't face what would happen next. Not only would these children discover they lost both parents, but would spend their Halloween in a county jail until somebody could tend to them. It just wasn't right, Bradley wrote on GoFundMe. "I pulled the deputy coroner to the side and told him that I was split," Bradley continued. "I wanted to preserve these kids' Halloween and the ones to come. I suggested that I'd care for them until their family was able to." After receiving his approval, the trooper then invited the children to join him for a bite to eat. When they spoke about waiting for their parents again, the trooper made another tough decision. "It was important to me that I would not lie to them," Bradley wrote. "I acknowledged their statement and threw out that their grandmother would be meeting with us later that evening." Reassured, the quartet then joined Bradley in his car, before driving off to the local McDonald's and Burger King. As the children ate their food, the trooper received a phone call from his corporal. "I have the best supervisors in the state, so I wasn't surprised when he told me that he was bringing his wife and their son to meet us," he wrote on GoFundMe. After finishing their meals, Bradley and the children returned to the car, making their way to the trooper's station. Over the course of their journey, he learned more about the quartet and their parents, with Justin touching on his father's military career. When they eventually arrived, the kids were then given a tour of the station. However, as the hours continued to pass by, the children were still unaware of the tragic news regarding Donald and Crystal, with Bradley waiting for their grandma's arrival. However, several people traveled to the station to offer their assistance, bringing with them bags and buckets full of candy. The children spent the night at the station before Oliver arrived in the early hours of the morning. "We both agreed that it would be best for the children to finish sleeping and to be told of their parents' fate the next day," Bradley wrote. "We hoped that they would then relate the tragedy to November 1, rather than Halloween." Oliver planned to take the children back to Sarasota to live with her and her daughter, Charlie Dismuke. However, A house wasn't big enough, as Dismuke's son and niece lived there as well. The issues for the family didn't end there either, with funeral costs also reaching around $7,000. With that in mind, Justin contacted Bradley to update him on the situation, which prompted the trooper to act. He set up a GoFundMe page on November 3, 2015, aiming to raise the required money for Donald and Crystal's funeral. However, surely he couldn't have envisioned what happened next. Some 24 hours after setting it up, Bradley's GoFundMe page had already earned a huge $33,000 in donations, but before long, the total had reached over $500,000, with that money being kept in a trust fund. Meanwhile, Dismuke suggested that her mother could buy a bigger property with some of the funds, making things a little easier. On November 13, 2015, Donald and Crystal were laid to rest in Sarasota, with their children joined by family and friends at the service. The coffins had been adorned with flowers, while a cousin offered some words about the kids to the room. However, she reserved special praise for Bradley's actions. "I want to thank the officer that came and took my cousins, and still allowed my cousins to enjoy their Halloween on that horrible night," she said. Indeed, Bradley's compassion won't be forgotten anytime soon by the Howard family. Thanks to some quick thinking, he not only shielded those children from a horrible tragedy, but he also ensured them a brighter future.
This story was really incredible, but you will like the next one more.
These 4 siblings suffered childhoods of neglect, but then 2 guardians came into their lives. After enduring a miserable life with allegedly abusive parents, Alicia, Bradley, Cody, and Emma needed a foster family to take them in. As there were so many of them, they knew it was likely that they'd be shipped off to different homes. But then the stars aligned for them. Alicia, Bradley, Cody, and Emma are 4 siblings who didn't have the easiest start in life by any means. In fact, their story is a sad one, reportedly full of abuse and neglect. They were originally from Overland Park, Kansas, and lived with their parents. But their parents' marriage wasn't a happy one. The relationship broke down, and a series of unfortunate events followed. According to the Kansas City Star, the children's parents then turned to substance abuse after the split. Along with that environment came a spate of abuse and neglect. Indeed, the 4 kids say they were physically mistreated at home. Consequently, the eldest child, Alicia, had taken on a protective role, looking after her younger 3 siblings ever since she had been very young herself. With that in mind, a friend of theirs told the Kansas City Star that Alicia had been a mother to those kids since she was 3 years old. Nevertheless, despite the devotion of the eldest sibling, all 4 of them ended up reportedly suffering so much abuse that the state had to get involved. In November 2015, they were all taken in by the state to keep them safe. The idea was that the 4 siblings would then find foster families who would take them in permanently. Even so, there was always a fear that they'd all end up going to different homes. Speaking to 41 Action News, the siblings recalled how nervous they were about being separated. But at that point, they had no idea what was going on nearby. In the city of Gardner, a couple called Eric and Phyllis Watson had just received some great news. The Watsons had always wanted to have a baby of their own. However, it wasn't destined to happen for them. In fact, they had tried and failed to start a family, which is what led them to explore the world of fostering children instead. So they got started with all the necessary training to become official foster parents. Then in November 2015, they finally jumped through the final hoop and received their license, and it happened to be just one day after the 4 siblings were taken in by the state. The license gave them permission to become foster parents should an appropriate opportunity arise, and it also held potential for the Watsons to adopt after that. So just one day after they finished all the paperwork, the couple had a phone call. An adoption agency was on the line, calling to tell the Watsons about the 4 siblings it had on its books. But there was a slight catch. The Watsons were only looking for 1 foster child to start with. However, the adoption agency wanted to find a foster home where all 4 of the kids could stick together. It was a big ask for the couple, who had never taken in any children before, so they went off to think about it for a while. "We were thinking 1 foster child at a time, maybe 2. We weren't thinking 4 at once," Eric Watson told the Kansas City Star. Even though they never dreamed of taking in 4 kids, it only took the Watsons a couple of days to come to a decision. It all happened when Eric had a short sleep. On waking up, He had a decision. "We're going to take the kids," he told his wife. And there was one particular reason why he came to that conclusion in the end. The turning point for me was they were going to be split up, and I didn't want to see that, Eric told 41 Action News while becoming visibly emotional thinking about it. And we've never regretted it. Not one day, added Phyllis. So mere 2 days after the Watsons first heard about the 4 siblings needing a home, they officially accepted the displaced children. And to accommodate them, not only did the Watsons expand their home, but they also bought a bigger car to cater for their new family of 6. For the first year of foster family life, the main aim was to get the kids back with their birth parents again. But it wasn't happening. That's when full adoption became a realistic solution for the siblings. And sure enough, in March 2018, it happened. The family of 6 walked into Johnson County District Court to stand before Judge Kathleen L. Sloan to make the adoption official. Alizia, Bradley, Cody, and Emma grinned from ear to ear as they posed for a photograph with the judge once all the papers were signed. The judge even commanded everyone present to stand up and applaud the adoptive parents for what they were doing for the kids. Then she had some beautiful words to say to the courtroom. "There is nothing better than an adoption," she began. "In part because you all came in here happy, and I get to let you leave happier than when you came in here. And you have to trust me on this. Judges do not get to do that very much." The judge joked, and from that moment on, the Watsons were officially a family.